Is that right?
You have a
A what? Oh, fuck.
If you see a faded sign at the side of the road that says 15 miles to the
Love shack, yeah, yeah. I'm heading down the Atlanta highway, looking for the love getaway, headed for the love getaway.
I'm going to lay down a prediction here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
You were reading last, so obviously it's my turn to read, so I reckon that means we're going straight back into completely absurd, dull, boring shit that has no purpose whatsoever. Especially seeing as how the last chapter ended, you know? So I reckon this will be about, like, I don't know, TV sets or something like that. It will be a product placement chapter.
Yeah.
It will be fucking Ricky Lips and his twat son buying a TV for the Ocelot.
I'll shag the ocelot. Well, fingers crossed.
You're okay with this? David asked. No, I am not okay with this, Tina replied. No, you cannot convince me. I must be loyal to my capo. He took a deep breath to show her he was exasperated with her. I've listened to your opinion about this 6 times. Oh, isn't it such a shame we didn't get to hear all 6 of those?
I've listened to you complaining about this 17 times. Counting out the time. Like, fuck me, man.
I told you it was going to get into complete horse shit immediately.
Yeah. Well, 100% of you who placed your bets that Joe's prediction was going to be correct. Congratulations.
And if you keep asking me, you're going to hear it 6 more times. Nothing's going to change. Now that is something I can believe.
That's the book making a prediction.
Y'all got that right. Nothing's gonna change. What I'm doing is fine. It's perfect. You're not at all involved. I'm a big boy. I got me a passport and I had all my shots. What if this all goes wrong? It can't. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you enjoy the play?
I really hope that happens. I hope he gets fucking whacked.
Shot in the
He
head.
gets whacked out by the fucking Colombians. They chainsaw his fucking legs out.
Remember 2 weeks ago when you said the same thing about that cargo of Cuban mahogany that turned out to be maple or birch or some other kind of crap from Bangladesh? Stop throwing that in my face. We'll get that money back. Yeah, she said, when the cows come home. This is fucking shit,
It was
man.
incredible stuff. Wow. It's like, I'm like, Jesus. Like, honestly, the emotions kind of overwhelm me. I just need to take a break. Either that or I need a shit.
It could be both.
Yeah.
Shit happens, he said.
That's what I was about to say.
He found a $112,000 shipment of ink stranded in Colorado. Oh, sorry, fucking hell. I cannot get place names at all, man. This is fucked. I have dyslexia, but only for place names.
Geographic.
Yeah, yeah.
Depends where you are.
Yeah.
It's strange when I'm in the pub. I can't seem to say anything right.
He found a 1,200,000. Oh no, hang on, that's not even a 1,200,000. Oh.
Fuck me. He's lost numbers now.
He left the newsprint in Muscat, started looking for something else, then.
He left the newsprint in my scat.
I'm the scat man. What the hell? He bought it for $229,000, sold it for an even $240,000, and put the trade through Tina's account. What a lovely, lovely guy.
You can already hear the chainsaws revving up. Colombians coming up the stairs.
There y'all go. He looked at her empty desk. That's 11 grand for doing nothing because I'm a real nice guy. That's when Uncle RD called, trying to get me into a swap deal with Azerbaijan and Belarus. Y'all still got those contacts with the Rojas brothers down there? Y'all again.
They're gonna try and out yarn.
Yeah, they're gonna have a y'all off.
Yeah.
I'll let you know. You, he said you. I'll let you know.
It must be a typo.
Yeah. I'll let you know when I need you to make that call. Wow, that's twice in one sentence. That's incredible. I'm astounded.
Shocking oversight.
Yeah.
Fire him. As Trump would say.
Now Timmins appeared at his door. Got a minute? Velasco asked Timmins, aren't you off duty? This is so good I couldn't go home without showing it to you. He waved a DVD, put it in the machine and turned on the big screen. I really don't know if I want to carry on reading. The view was from a camera on the 42nd floor and showed the main hallway in front of the 3 elevators. Velasco watched as nothing happened. I know how he feels. Then suddenly he saw movement on the right side of the screen. It looked to him as if someone had come out of a door. Mrs. Essenbach's door. By the way that person was hurrying back to his feet, Velasco realised he'd been shoved. Here it comes, Timmins pointed to the screen. A short, bald-headed man, probably in his late 60s, moved into view, and all he was wearing was a pair of briefs and a sleeveless undershirt. Who's that? Current husband, Timmins replied. Until last week, I didn't know that she had a current husband. She does, or did. She tossed him out in his underwear. Velasco saw the time code and realised that this had only taken place 7 or 8 minutes after he'd stormed out of her apartment. Timmins fast-forwarded yet again. Now the shot was from the camera facing the curb. The man in his underwear hailed a taxi. A cab pulled up. Jorge the doorman helped him in and the cab pulled away. Velasco grinned, finally understanding Reardon's message. Us one, man in underwear nil. Velasco quickly turned back to his office. Rebecca Batelli was standing right there. Do you have a moment? Yes, please. I'm happy to see you. She looked away, turning her eyes down to the floor. I'm sorry about yesterday. I couldn't bring myself. That's alright. No, it's not. I'm not usually rude. Please have that accountant send me his bill. Don't worry about that. It's more important that we set a date for him to come back. Still not looking at him, she started shaking her head. I couldn't bring myself to come in yesterday. I couldn't bear the thought of finding out that the company is broke. I'm so confused. I don't know if I'm capable of running the business, and I don't want to be told that I have to close the business.
This is like such fucking noir shit. He's gonna slap her in the fucking face and she'll be all like, oh, thank you. I was
Slap her in
being a
the-
hysterical woman. Takes a fucking shot of whiskey, slaps her in the face, kisses her, and she swallows the whiskey. Johnny!
I'm sure he can help you. She looked up at him and started to cry. Pierre, I don't know what to do. He hesitated, leaned forward to reach for her hands, and held them. They stayed that way for a moment, her hands in his. Then she slowly pulled away. I'm being a silly little girl. She wiped her eyes.
What did I just say? Fuck me.
My husband's family, actually his cousin, is insisting that I give him complete control of the business. He wants you to sell out? No, he wants me to hand it to him and walk away. He says my husband never intended on leaving the business to me, except he did. Let's see about that. He got Ronnie Rose on the phone. Mrs. Batelli wasn't available yesterday, but she's in my office now. Can we do something for her today? The shoe lady, his accountant said. Let me tell you, Pierre, when I came home last night without any shoes, my wife can get very nasty when she needs to make a point.
I just walked in the front door with no shoes on.
He instructed Miguel, please take Mrs. Batelli to 24. Then said to her, you know how to change elevators there, don't you? She said she did. What a silly little girl she is. With her silly little girly problems like her dead husband's family trying to muscle her out of her business. What a silly little girl.
Yeah.
I mean, Velasco's got way more important things to deal with. I mean, there's probably been several sexual assaults
Yeah.
in the time
He
he's
could have
done it.
been covering up murders
Yeah.
and rapes
Yeah.
doing all this.
Yeah.
Silly, silly girl.
Sir, Piero startled him. Mrs. Essenbach is in the lobby. Coming around his desk, Velasco was at his door when she spotted him. You betrayed me, she yelled. I will never forgive you. He went to her and extended his hand. May we speak privately? No, we may not. She said very loudly, your betrayal is unforgivable. You made me a promise. I will expose you for the fraud that you are, she continued. A lying, cheating fraud. You will all know what a fraud he is. I will expose him. With that, the woman stormed out of Trump Tower. That's when Velasco's phone rang. It was Rebecca Batelli and she was hysterical. I've been robbed.
I'm gonna murder you! He screamed over the music blaring on the 15 speakers spread out all over the
Excellent,
apartment.
we're getting some.
The ocelot
Oh,
tore
it's
out
sad.
of Ricky's bedroom. Bloody fucking cat! He chased after it, racing into the living room, wearing nothing but his underpants and his ankle bracelet.
He's got an ankle
Every
bracelet.
fucking time! This is just getting stupid now. See, I get the best chapters.
I know, man.
Put that down! Screamed a young woman he'd been sleeping with. Come here, you fucking miserable cat! He was carrying a meat cleaver. Him or the cat.
Hopefully the cat.
Yeah. Can you turn down that fucking music? Shouted some guy standing in the hallway in front of the third bedroom, wearing nothing but an undershirt. Give me that! The young woman, who was wearing nothing but a pair of Ricky's underpants, tried to grab the meat cleaver. Now the ocelot hissed at Ricky and bared its teeth, and when he stepped back, the animal darted off the counter, ran right through Ricky's legs and back into the living room. Fuck me, it's a lion! Ricky came out of the kitchen to find a young guy standing there, looking very much like the first guy, and also wearing nothing but an undershirt. The woman in the underpants stared. What a line. That's when there was a horrific scream from Joey's bedroom. A woman yelled, help, help, help! Ricky ran down the hall to Joey's bedroom, where they found a very chubby redhead trembling with fright and screaming, "Help, help." "Oi," Ricky demanded. "Who the fuck are you?" Now someone was ringing the doorbell. The chubby woman kept on screaming, "Help, help, help." Ricky went to the door. A very young woman was standing there. Ricky had no idea who she was. "Who the fuck are you?" The young woman stared at Ricky in his underpants, hoisting a meat cleaver, and seemed too shocked to say anything. "Hello?" he said to her. "Anyone home?" That was hello and a you. "Hello?" Looking past him, she saw the woman wearing Ricky's underpants and nothing else, and Jules wearing an undershirt and nothing else. Somehow she managed to say, "Is Joey here?" "No, love, sorry, Joey's not here." Suddenly the ocelot shot out of the door and into the hallway. The young woman screamed in fright. "Bugger me," Ricky yelled, and then asked, "So who are you?" She only managed to say, "My name is Andy."
"Wait till you see this," Tony Gallicano said. "Oh, hi, good morning." Antonia was surprised to find her boss in this early, and instead of going into her own office, she walked straight into his. He pointed to the widescreen television hanging on the wall of his office, then pushed the clicker. It was CCTV footage of Katharina Essenbach throwing her husband out of the tower in his underwear. "Who is that?" Antonia stood there, her shoes in plastic shopping bags in one hand. She just
Had plastic shopping bags on her feet. I mean, at this point it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. "Who's that?" Antonia stood there, her shoes in a plastic shopping bag in one hand, her coffee in the other.
Is the coffee in another plastic bag? Got a bag
It's
of
just-
coffee.
yeah, it's there's no cup, it's
No,
just in a bag with a
Just in
straw.
She just like bunches it up and like threw down herself.
Antonia remembered the meeting was last night. Residents voted no, as we always knew they would. Pierre Belasco went to tell her that she'd been turned down, and she gave him hell. Why Pierre? What's it got to do with him? She claims he promised to get the residents to agree. He made her a promise? Of course not, she's lying, but that doesn't change the fact that she could cause trouble. That's what liars usually do. That's terrible. She made a point of telling Gallicano, "I adore Pierre, and I'm on his side 100%.
I'm completely sincere in the things I do and say.
How interesting." Antonia smiled politely. How very interesting. As she took off her running shoes, she saw that Gallicano was still engrossed in what he was reading, and quickly took the report down the hallway to make a photocopy. In her own office, she angled her computer in such a way that no one coming into the room could see what she was looking at. Googling Katharina Essenbach, she sorted through a couple of dozen links, reading all the references, especially about the woman's various marriages and the lawsuits against her plastic surgeons. Antonia sent the links she wanted to save to her Jersey Hot 1983 address and deleted her browser history files so that nobody could see what she'd been Googling. She also deleted her sent email files in case someone looked to see where she'd been emailing. Well, I'll tell you what, you have to get up very early in the morning and get one over on her own. Now she wondered where else she could find out more about Mrs. Essenbach. There was a specialist database the company used for top executive background checks, except she couldn't recall what the name of it was. It had something to do with dancing. Ah, that was it, 35 Tango. She sat down at a computer in the corner, logged on and tried to get into the 35 Tango site by spelling out the word. It didn't work, so she tried it with the number 35. Nothing. She typed the words with hyphens, then underscores, then used .net instead of .com, and then she tried .org. Still nothing.
Why isn't she just Googling?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just
What the fuck?
what I love is he's trying to show you with this how savvy he is with computers, and it's just like, geez, you
Completely
just
falling
Google
flat.
it. Frustrated, she Googled 35 Tango.
Why wouldn't you do that in the beginning? What?
It wasn't until she got to the second page that she found the link http etc 35tango.int.
Are they paying for this too? Is this product placement for them as well? Jeffrey Robinson sits on the board of directors of this company, apparently.
Subscription started at $125,000 a year.
Antonia thought this was actually very reasonable considering the services they were providing.
She had no idea if that was expensive or a bargain for a company as big as the Trump Organization, but $275 plus tax out of her pocket to find out about Katharina Essenbach, nearly $300 to find out what. But then she wondered what information all these databases had on her. Do they know about Antonia's secret life?
What? Wait, oh god, is she Finn Boatman? Is she Finn Boatman?
Yes, yes, yes she is.
Yes!
She now typed Katharina Essenbach into the search form. This time, several dozen pages popped up containing more than 1,000 links. Wow. According to one of the databases, her current husband, the man in the underwear, was Julio de Garcia Gutierrez, an exiled Chilean diplomat who'd been implicated by the Spanish government in the theft of several $100 million. According to this, he'd been in cahoots with former dictator General Augusto Pinochet. Holy shit, Antonia. This game is getting really good. Next, Antonia found newspaper clippings and court documents from Great Britain where Mrs. Essenbach had sued 2 newspapers for libel. They'd accused her of murder. According to the Daily Express and the Mail on Sunday, Katharina had been questioned by police in connection with the death of her last husband, Kurt Essenbach. The story made the British papers because, as it turned out, the late Mr. Essenbach had once been involved in a torrid and much publicised love affair with the Queen's sister, Princess Margaret. I'm having a drink for that.
We've had Prince Andrew, now we got Margaret.
Murder, Antonia said, closing her left eye, tilting her head and trying to sound like Inspector Columbo. I almost forgot. Excuse me for bothering you again, ma'am. One more thing. Forgive me, ma'am, for prying, but after all those lawsuits and after killing your last husband, I'm trying to get this straight in my own mind. What do you think of Pierre Belasco?
She's sitting there
Yeah.
internet cafe doing a Columbo act to an empty room.
Wouldn't it be so funny if someone walked in right then?
Yeah, there's just someone like over in the corner that she can't see. It's just like, what the fuck?
This is terrible, Belasco said as soon as he walked into the showroom. Are you alright? Desk and file drawers were emptied, with papers and files strewn everywhere. Shelves were overturned, furniture was upended, and some of it was destroyed. Shoes and shoeboxes were scattered all over the place. No, Rebecca was standing in the middle of the room. I'm not. What the hell? Reardon appeared in the doorway. Belasco motioned for him to come in. No sign of a forced entry. That means someone had a key. Somebody's very angry at you, he said to Rebecca, then took his phone and called one of his team. Harry, we've got a 1021 on 19. We'll find him, but we need to bring in the police. Rebecca shook her head. I don't know. You must, Belasco said. I know who did it. He won't harm me. It's my husband's cousin, Johnny. All he wants is for me to give him this business. Cousin Johnny. It would be Cousin Johnny, wouldn't it? Reardon was insistent. Mrs. Batelli, a crime has been committed in Trump Tower. Imagine that. Imagine that, eh? She looked at the little bookcase sitting in front of the window. The top shelf was empty. In a panic, she started pushing furniture aside until she found a silver picture frame crushed on the floor. The photo was gone.
A picture of her next to Ella Arthur Palmer in Orkney in the 1700s.
She found the bottom half sitting in the feed of her shredder. Someone had deliberately shredded the top half. It was a photo from her honeymoon. She and Mark were in Italy, holding hands and smiling at each other, leaning to the left in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which was tilted to the right. It always made her laugh.
She was a prick that way.
Bastard, she screamed, and turned to Reardon. Call the police. Yes, please, call the police. 2 of Reardon's people showed up with a video camera and started filming. Then 2
What the fuck was that? And then 2 Jesus Christ. Everyone who watches these videos knows you're illiterate. Jesus Christ. It's really getting to you this time.
2 ununiformed NYPD officers arrived, followed by 2 detectives.
Sorry, 2 ununiformed. Does it actually say that?
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Oh! No, it doesn't. Yeah, no, uniformed. That's because I thought it said uniformed, and then I thought it said ununiformed, and now. Jesus Christ.
I was going to say, I'll keep jumping in every time I suspect that it's you that's fucking.
They were running through the camera footage from the 19th floor, but now there was a young woman standing next to Rebecca holding her hand. This is my daughter, Gabriella. There, Reardon pointed to a monitor. The view was from one of the cameras in the tower lobby. 2 men walked in from 5th Avenue wearing raincoats and went up to the elevators. The security officer looked towards them and one of the men appeared to flash him a pass. What's wrong with this picture? Reardon asked, then answered his own question. It didn't rain last night. The raincoats are there to hide whatever it is they're carrying. Velasco asked, like what? Like burglar tools, Reardon said. These 2 guys, Velasco looked at the detectives. Yeah.
Fucking what? David.
I have to apologize again for the fluorescent lights. I I think it's a bad transformer.
There must be some way of finding them. Pierre, Reardon shook his head. You don't understand how these things work. The world you see on television, that's not the real world of the NYPD.
We've got young Hispanics to be roughing up.
Yeah.
We can't be busying ourselves with solving crimes. We have 10-year-olds to stick in Rikers.
Outside the conference room, he asked Reardon and the detective. Outside the conference room, he asked Reardon and the... Jesus Christ, Reardon.
He asked Reardon. Outside he asked Reardon. Excuse me. Outside it's fine, just take time. You know, not too much time, obviously. Joe, that's too much time. Go get Billy! Ricky pointed down the hall. Quick, the cat! Envy was too frightened to move. I can't, love. He pointed to the ankle bracelet. If I leave, it goes off.
He's
I'll get
got an
arrested
ankle
again.
bracelet!
Literally every scene he's in, within 2 sentences, the ankle bracelet is referred to. Just then, a completely naked woman walked out of the second bedroom and into the living room, saw the commotion and said, "Pardon me, didn't know you had company," turned around and went back inside. By now, Envy was shaking. I must go. I must leave, please. That's when the elevator door opened and Joey stepped out with a very short redhead. He spotted Envy. Pocahontas? The ocelot darted into the elevator. "Hey," Miguel, the elevator operator, yelled. "Get out!" Joey picked up the ocelot and asked, "Pocahontas, what are you doing here?" Envy shouted, "Wait," Miguel, jumped into the elevator and the door shut.
Well, that was all very necessary, wasn't it?
The moment she spotted Mrs. Essenbach getting out of her chauffeur-driven Jaguar, Antonia understood why this woman had sued several plastic surgeons. Wow. Her face was so tightly pulled back, Antonia worried what might happen if she tried to laugh. The woman stepped out of the back seat with some help from her chauffeur and extended her hand to Antonia. "I'm very pleased to meet you, and thank you for coming to see me. When I was informed that Mr. Belasco made you promises, well, Mrs. Essenbach, we're a business that keeps our promises. Our word is our bond."
Yeah, Donald Trump is very well known for being a man of his word.
Yeah, when they make a promise, like, you know, to pay contractors, for example, they do it without fail, every time. The board members were clearly following Mr. Belasco's lead. He assured me that he had no influence. Antonia stoked the fire. That's what he said. But more important than that is his, let's call it what it is, his betrayal. We were very close. That surprised Antonia. Very close? She slowly smiled. On a personal basis. Antonia didn't believe it. Not with this woman. And anyway, she'd always assumed that Belasco was gay. You seem surprised. Not surprised that Mr. Belasco would find you. She looked for the right words, and the only thing she could think of was exotic and irresistible. He is, I'm sure you will agree, a very attractive man. What do you suppose would happen if Mr. Belasco was forced to admit, or for that matter, forced to deny that you and he were close? You and he were buddies.
You and he were buddies, weren't you? Need I say more? Need I say more?
It was as if a light suddenly went on in Mrs. Essenbach's head. She started to grin. "And who do you suppose might take over if Mr. Belasco were to leave?" Antonia gestured. "I wouldn't know." Cindy spent part of the day at Tien. When she was done there and in the car on her way back to Trump Tower, a text message arrived on her phone. "You will always be one of my life's great loves. Alas, George." Alas? She wondered. Why alas? The only Georges she thought she knew were George Timothy Daniels and George Masterson. Daniels always signed his texts Timmy, and Masterson always signed his text Bat, after the cowboy. She hadn't seen Daniels for a year or so, although he texted every now and then to joke. "We'll always have the Lincoln bedroom," referring to the most famous sleepover spot in Washington, D.C., except they'd never been to the White House together. It stemmed from a chance meeting in Lincoln, Nebraska, when they found themselves at the same hotel. They were both doing publicity tours, him for a space shuttle flight, Cindy for her A Poil cosmetics line, and every time they tried to sneak off together, one of the people travelling with them got in the way.
Fuck off!
She walked into the lobby to find that Fabrice and his assistant Joël were already there. She kissed them on the sides of their faces twice and motioned to them to follow her. She said, "Hold on a sec," and went to Belasco's office. He was sitting at his desk writing something. "Bonjour," she said. He looked up, smiled broadly. "Miss Benson, are you well?" "Confused," she said. "Confused?" "Do you ever sign your texts George?" "No," he stared at her. "Now I'm confused." "Don't be." She blew him a kiss. "Au revoir." She went back to Fabrice and Joël at the elevator, grinned at Miguel, "Vamonos, caballero," and went home to have her hair done. So, was that a covert threat? Like, because obviously we've been convinced from, like, literally chapter 1 that Cindy's the first.
Yeah.
Is that a threat? "You will always be one of my life's great loves. Alas, George." Like,
maybe, yeah.
"I'm gonna kill you."
Yeah, yeah.
Surely that would not get an entire chapter dedicated to itself.
Yeah, Well, you say that, don't you? You say that.
Yeah, surely. Please, please, please. I'm begging, surely. A young, dark-haired, 20-year-old woman in an NBC page uniform arrived at Alicia's desk in the newsroom. Alicia looked up from her computer screen, then grinned. Susie? The young woman in the uniform nodded. I wanted you to see what I look like. She did a quick pirouette. Susie Timmins, NBC Guest Relations. She curtsied. At your service. Timmins. Jesus. So we've got the Timmins connection now. So everything seems to be kind of circling the drain. And they're becoming one in the darkness beneath.
The dark pool.
She had hardly known Susie's father, but when he dropped her a note and introduced himself as the night security supervisor at Trump Tower and asked for help, Carson told her, you never know when you might need a favour from him. Like what? Like when I'm away and you need him to destroy the CCTV footage of you coming home with, she suggested, Johnny Depp.
That's aged well.
How many abusers can we stick in one book? Her phone rang again. Alicia, Sandy at Knightley. You got a minute? Sure, come on down. As soon as she walked into the newsroom there, Sandy Bridgman spotted her, came over to greet her, took her hand and pulled her off to the side of the big newsroom where they could talk privately. We need a favour, he said. Bill. Bill? We've been given the go for a camera on the roof of the museum tonight. Oh, that Bill. She looked at Sandy. Now Carson will kill me. Why? Because it's a party and I'm not supposed to be working. If he does, Sandy promised, we'll lead with the murder tomorrow on Knightley. Then headline the package as your final interview. Should be great for the ratings. Do you think that might be a bit of foreshadowing?
I hope so.
I know you said you thought Alicia was going to be the one to get murdered. I mean, it makes more sense now with the Finn Folkman. Bill Clinton's going to be the assassin.
I hope so.
Hillary.
Yeah. Bill will be the distraction.
Yeah.
You won't even know what the fuck's going on. Hillary will be throwing ninja stuff.
Alicia was about to go into a package on broken windows in New York City schools when Greg called into her earpiece from the booth that they needed extra time with Megan at the museum. So the broken window story got pulled and Alicia went back to Megan. It's like we're actually just watching a news programme now in this From the steps of the museum, Megan did a quick on the red carpet with Jay-Z. He reminded viewers how important it was. They all send money to the Clinton Haiti Fund. Got a hello from Donald and Melania Trump. Then went into a taped 45 seconds with the Haitian singer and political activist Wycliffe Jean. What the fuck is the point of any of this?
I've got to say, I am quite shocked that it was Jay-Z and not R. Kelly.
Yeah. She got up, said, thanks everybody, and raced to the makeup room to change into her clothes. When she was dressed, Agnes, the makeup woman, touched up her eyeshadow and gave her a quick comb out. That was vital information.
She's had a comb out.
They'll be able to identify the body with a comb out. Alicia grabbed the box of chocolates that Susie had brought her, threw her day clothes into her carry-all, and hurried out of the building. Carson and Cindy were waiting in a car, as planned, at the Rainbow Room entrance. Like a heist. They're gonna fucking kidnap Clinton.
Antonia spent a few hours back in the office putting together the calculations Anthony Gallicano had asked for, but the second she finished that, she hurried out the door. She took the subway uptown, picked up a pizza for dinner, and carried it into her apartment. She changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt, turned on her printer, put the pizza box on her bed to the left, and had plenty of napkins at the ready on her right. She bolstered up her pillows behind her, carefully placed a bottle of beer between her alarm clock and the lamp on her night table, positioned her laptop, logged onto her Gmail account, and then logged on to the 35 Tango site. Another slice and another beer later, she was asking herself, how much more does Antonia need? She reminded herself, Antonia only needs to make sure that Mrs. Essenbach is motivated.
Hang on, I forgot my glasses.
Oh. Do you want me to start again for continuity's sake?
Is there any point? I don't
Not really, no. I mean,
I'll just go and the glasses will appear. Allow me to summon them.
She reassured herself, Antonia only needs enough to be certain that her Lady Macbeth will kill the king. The king, she thought about Belasco. Now she opened a fourth bottle of beer, went to the search page at 35 Tango and typed in his name. Pierre Belasco motioned to his couch and shut his office door. Timmins doesn't come on for a few hours, so I said that we could do this alone. How can I help? Forbes asked, dressed as he always seemed to be in his dark green bomber jacket. But this time, instead of a University of West Virginia baseball hat, he was wearing one that said Marist basketball. Taking 2 DVDs off his desk, Belasco put the first one in the machine. "Watch this," he said, and clicked it on. It was the CCTV composite that showed the 2 men coming into Trump Tower, going upstairs and then leaving.
I just want to say, there have been so many fucking scenes now. 2 of them watching this tape. Of just people sitting in this office watching DVDs of CCTV footage from the night before. Like, how often is this going to happen?
Have you automatically ruled out Mrs. Batelli? I presume she has a building pass and that she has a front door key. Probably several. You think she broke into her own showroom? No, but how about she paid someone to trash the place? That's ridiculous. Why would she do that? Insurance? No, he rejected the idea outright. There's no way. It would help a lot if we knew what the 2 men took out. I still don't know how you can be so sure they took something out. The raincoats. Maybe whoever did it wants you to think they're angry. Maybe there is something else going on. Like what? Like, Forbes said, whatever those 2 men took out hidden under their raincoats. Fuck me. What would they take out? It's like they're just literally just...
Talking in circles.
So, Forbes asked, what do you want me to do? Belasco answered, whatever the police can't or won't.
Want these guys' balls in a bag.
Antonia suddenly found herself confronted with references to more than 30 different Pierre Belascos. Back at those business listings, she tried to find something that might work. She read each one carefully and came across the same information repeated and repeated and repeated.
Oh yeah. Cool, that must have been frustrating for her.
It was frustrating, and she was on the verge of giving up when she spotted an entry in one file that read B 1958 Crans Montana Valais Switz. Immediately she added Switzerland and 1958 to qualify her search for Pierre Belasco, and up came 3 pages of links. Gotcha! That brought up a few other links, which led her to what appeared to be a photo image of a newspaper article. It was in French, something about Paris. Taking the printed page over to a lamp, she squinted and saw the word femme and the word fille and the word voiture. That's when she realised what it was saying. Oh my god! She put her hand over her mouth. In Paris in 1986, Pierre Belasco's wife, Camille, and infant son, Christian, had been killed in a car accident.
A truly shocking revelation. Joe, this changes everything.
Yeah, I can't quite figure out in which way it does,
No, but sure, I know that it does.
yeah, I mean, it's got to, hasn't it? Otherwise...
Well, I mean, Joe, they're hardly going to include something that's apart.
300 hand-picked guests had received the beautifully printed invitation that read, Bill Clinton cordially requests the honour of your company for cocktails and finger food on the Iris and B. Gerald Cantor Roof Garden in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in aid of the Clinton Foundation Initiative. New York loves Haiti.
I tell you, I don't want anything to do with Clinton's cocks or fingers. Thank
No.
No, thank you.
Alicia, Cindy and Carson arrived at the museum's steps, shuttled there from the designated drop-off point in golf carts decorated with NY Heart Haiti signs, and escorted by musicians up and down the block playing traditional Haitian marine, only to find a long line waiting to go through security. It's just everything that happens is so bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you're just reading it and you're like, what?
But it's like, because it's all so drawn out, it kind of becomes mundane.
Yeah,
that sort of
yeah,
way,
yeah,
and pedestrian.
yeah,
So it's just like, then they got onto the golf carts. They
Yeah,
had this
yeah.
crazy shit. And a fucking Haitian band sat there with them, and they played the music as they drove along, and you're just like,
And
wait,
you're just
no,
like, well,
sorry, what?
okay.
Stop, what? What are you talking about? This surely is like a big thing. Surely you would focus in on that, but it's all just told in the same, like,
Yeah.
dry, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. It's so strange.
Photographers were everywhere, snapping photos, and television news crews were all over the steps too. They rushed to photograph Cindy and Alicia, then just as quickly abandoned them when the next golf cart arrived, this time with Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. Behind the Smiths were Ellen DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi. Behind them was James Gandolfini sharing a golf cart with Hugh Jackman and his wife. Steve Buscemi and his wife were near the front of the line.
Tony Soprano and Tony B.
Whatever happened there?
He's MIA. A lot of people are concerned for his well-being.
So what the fuck would I know about that?
Well, as coincidence would have it, he was last seen in New Jersey.
So was the Hindenburg. Maybe you want to look into that too.
Oh my god. Steve Buscemi and his wife were near the front of the line, and so was Sienna Miller, who was deep in conversation with Barbara Walters. This is fucking...
Just doing it again.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, how many
I've got to be
times
honest though,
I
these
do
are some of
love
the best
them, yeah,
parts.
they're so
Like,
good.
Megan O'Donnell spotted Alicia and wanted her to do a piece to camera, but Alicia sidestepped the interview by saying, "You don't want me, you want Liza Minnelli," who happened to be standing 20 yards away talking to Bette Midler.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Portia de Rossi and Liza Minnelli are both in Arrested Development.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Arrested Development
and The
happening over here. We've got The
Sopranos.
Sopranos happening over there. What the fuck?
Oh my god. Oh my god, it's still going. It's actually still going. They chatted until Alicia came back, and a few minutes after that, Bill Clinton, who can work a room better than anybody else on the planet, sidled up to them to say hello. "We watch you every night at 6, Bill told Alicia, "and Hillary thinks you're the best."
Hillary says, girl pal. Hillary thinks you're better than anyone else who's ever been alive. This guy is incredible. How does he do it? Turns around. Hillary thinks you're better than anyone who's ever been alive. Wow. How does he do this?
Turning to David and Tina, Bill told her, "You're much too beautiful and much too smart for a fellow like David." "There's truth in humour," she said flatly, then forced a smile so that everyone would think she was joking. "And from what I hear," Clinton said to David, "you're still not telling the truth about your handicap." "What, y'all do? Let's play sometime soon. I can't afford you. Last time you claimed to be a 22, except y'all play to 13. Trump plays to 2. Yeah, well, if the Donald ever becomes president, he'll claim to play to 15. It's what we do."
Oh dear. They were simpler times, Joe. Presidents didn't take advantage of public office like Trump did. Bill will tell you all about
Yeah.
that.
Now, with Cindy on his arm, the former president headed for Robert De Niro and Julia Roberts, who were talking to Zeke Kimball.
Were they hugging him and saying
Yeah.
how great they thought he was?
Steven Spielberg and his wife were talking to Stevie Wonder and Kathleen Turner, while Nicole Kidman and Cameron Diaz were listening to Antoine de Masseneau tell them about the museum's dress collection. Matt Damon was trying to taste whatever it was that Halle Berry was eating, while Jennifer Hudson was describing her favourite restaurant in Miami to Mary J. Blige.
Jesus Christ.
Zeke smiled, patted Carson's arm, and walked away to speak to Tina Fey and Alec Baldwin, who were describing an outtake from 30 Rock to Anderson Cooper.
Jesus Christ.
Carson drifted off to the side of the roof and looked around at the city. He did a 360, then looked at Trump Tower and tried to count the floors to find their apartment, then turned to find himself standing next to a tall, slim young woman with deep green eyes and long, dark hair.
Ben Folkman.
I reckon.
Ben Folkman.
She introduced herself in English with a heavy French accent. "I am Amélie Laurey Moreau, and who are you?" "I'm Carson Haynes. Nice to meet you."
Moreau.
Yeah.
The island of Dr.
Yeah,
Moreau.
yeah.
Another strange island.
Amélie Moreau. It's
Mhm.
like,
Yeah. I wonder what secret religious organisation she might be.
Alicia thanked Clinton, who hugged her and left to continue working the room. "How did that go?" Carson asked, taking her hand. "Bill's Bill," she said. "If he hadn't gone into politics, he could have hosted The Tonight Show." He kissed the side of her face. What is it with this guy and the side? It's called a cheek.
Yeah,
he
stay
kissed
cheek.
her cheek.
Like, how far away from
Yeah.
the cheek does it have to be for him to not want to call it the cheek?
They left the Carlisle and then walked down Madison Avenue all the way to 56th Street, talking about nothing in particular, which is odd for this book, isn't it?
Yeah, usually that's no barrier to us having to listen to the fucking conversation anyway. Antonia had hardly slept. Rummaging around everything there was to find about Pierre Belasco, she began printing out all the links she had bookmarked. Wife and son killed in a car accident. How does Antonia use that? She turned to Katharina Essenbach and printed everything she could find about her various husbands, especially the one from Chile and the mysterious death of her husband in Alaska. How does Antonia use that? Antonia needs to keep going. Antonia shouldn't stop now. Who else? Come on, Antonia. Who else? David opened his eyes, saw that the sun wasn't up yet, and moved close to Tina, who was still asleep. He reached for her and started moving his hands all over her body. She groaned slightly, then moved closer to him and, with her eyes still closed, reached for him too. Alicia got up early to go to the gym with Carson. They worked the machines together, and then, sweaty and wrapped in their towels, they came back upstairs. She said, "Take your shower first," and went to make coffee, but as soon as she heard the water running, she got out of her clothes and surprised him. "Oh, hello," he said, his head soapy with shampoo. "Keep washing your hair," she instructed, took a handful of bath gel and touched him. "Oh, hello," he said again, this time in a different tone. The phone woke Cindy. She answered it with a groggy hello. It was His Excellency calling from Kuwait, and he was crying. "Cindy, help, please, help!" "What's wrong? What's happened?" He was weeping, nearly out of control. "Help me, please. This is terrible. It's Najiba, my wife. She is going to leave me. Umayma and Karida, Najiba, my wives." It took her nearly 10 minutes to stop him babbling and get the story out of him. "You've got to make it right with all 3 of your wives." "I can't. They won't." He was crying again. "My life with them them is over. No. She knew she needed to think of something before he thought of rebounding from them to her. Women who feel they have been rejected, they need attention, they need love, they need, out of the blue she decided, roses and diamonds. All women who feel rejected need roses and diamonds. There was a long pause. Roses and diamonds? Again.
Yep,
Someone
same,
says
yep.
something and then the other person just repeats it back to them as a question. Every single conversation. Zeke Gimbel's pied-à-terre on the 39th floor of Trump Tower had originally been a 2-bedroom apartment, but after he and Miriam split up, his accountant convinced him that he needed to turn the whole thing into a business expense. So Zeke broke down the walls of the second bedroom and expanded the living room to a large office. He bought a huge Georgian mahogany partner's desk, installed it in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows that faced Central Park, turned the couches toward the desk, and re-angled the dining room table that, for tax purposes, was inventoried as a conference table. Whatever you put in your office, his accountant told him when he bought the partner's desk, is a legitimate expense. Asking himself, what would I like to own if the government is paying for it? He started going to art auctions. God. He started going to art auctions in New York and very quickly got hooked. He bought a Giacometti walking man for the entrance. For the wall, he bought a huge Arman accumulation of paintbrushes. For the floor-to-ceiling bookcases that he'd built facing that, he'd bought several small sculptures, including 2 by Elizabeth Frink, 1 by Henry Moore, 2 by Jean Arp, and a Jasper Johns Ballantine XXX beer can bronze.
So the way that these people view art as well,
Yeah,
it's
it's
literally
all
just a
products.
thing to. Oh, it's a product made by this person.
It's
and
a named brand. He bought a Rauchenberg to hang over his bed and a Liechtenstein for the wall inside the door. There was also a Jim Dine bathrobe in his kitchen, which would otherwise be an unsuitable place for a painting, except no one ever cooked there. Soon, out of wall space, he stashed more than 24 other paintings in closets, including works by Frank Stella, Ed Ruscha, Larry Poons, and Cy Twombly, still wrapped the way they'd come from the auction house. With 2 homes in California, he had plenty of places to hang them if he'd wanted to, but keeping them in New York maintained their business expense status. Anyway, hanging paintings had long ago ceased to be the object of the game. This was all about buying and selling, and especially upgrading.
It's just like you say, man. Like, it's capitalism for all of us and socialism for the rich, isn't it?
We
Like,
just subsidise
we subsidise their
art
fucking
collection.
art collections in their offices. Again, like it says in there, you know, oh, if I can get my art collection at the expense of the government. So it's not the government paying for it, mate. It's the
us.
people of the country.
It's people who actually pay their taxes, unlike cunts like this.
Yeah.
After the party at the museum, Zeke had invited a bunch of friends to Rules, a private dining club on the east side near Sutton Place. Solly Green and his wife Belinda were also there. He'd just sold his Green Room music label to CBS for $1.7 billion. So was Zeke's old law school friend, Natty Whitestone, who, with his wife Ruth, was the largest single taxi fleet owner in the country.
What, the taxi fleet is large, or he's just fucking
gigantic.
huge? Yeah.
16 feet tall. His wife is also 16 feet tall. He'd gotten to bed at 3 and had set his alarm for 8:45, but the phone rang at 7. This is James Malcolm Isbister. Good morning to you. Oh, Zeke was half asleep. Good morning. He didn't realise that Isbister had his New York number. Would it be possible to meet this morning? This morning? He looked at the time. I guess I could do breakfast, but in like an hour? Unfortunately, I can't. The rest of the morning is a little tough for me. Zeke couldn't recall ever mentioning to him that he'd be in New York today. Do you always work this fast? Everything with us happens in real time. We never put things off because other things are always coming in to get in the way. Could we meet at 11? I apologise that I can't do any other time. He's only corporeal between the hours of 11 and 12. He returns to the dark pool. Yeah, alright, but you'll have to come to me. He gave his Bister the address. 2nd floor. It's a big room and there will be a lot of people, but you'll find me. I always stand off to the side. Walking into that big room on the 2nd floor at 9:50, Zeke was greeted by Caroline Tombley, a hefty, middle-aged woman with girlish bangs. At exactly 10, a grey-haired gentleman of a certain age, wearing a well-tailored suit and carrying a small, round, wooden gavel head in his left hand, took his place behind the large, polished wooden podium that sat on a raised platform at the front of the room. As fucking stunning as it is to say, even compared to 72 Virgins.
Oh, yeah,
This
yeah,
is the
yeah,
most
yeah.
overwritten book.
Yeah.
You could remove like 70% of the words of this book at random and you would not lose anything.
No,
about
yeah,
it.
your grasp on the story
Yeah, it would be
remain
just
the
as
same.
lax.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, he adjusted the microphone on the podium. Good morning. This morning's sale of contemporary art consists of 143 lots, and bidding in the room is by paddle. You have to spank him on the arse. If you have not yet signed in and received your paddle, we have several people scattered around the room to help you. They're called the paddlers, and they're the foot soldiers of the Finfolk. The sale was off and running. For the next 3/4 of an hour, Zeke watched as most of the lots appeared to sell. Although a couple that Zeke was sure would sell went unsold, and a few that he doubted would ever sell somehow managed to find buyers. Yes, every possible eventuality played out in front of him. Yes, I know. Now the auctioneer announced lot number 45. This was the first of 4 lots Zeke was selling. The catalogue estimate was $20,000 to $24,000, but he'd set a reserve price of $18,000, meaning that he wouldn't accept anything less than that. The auctioneer announced lot number 46. Zeke's reserve price was $30,000. It was sold for $55,000. Next was a Milton Avery nude. A very pink woman lying on her side in a divan. It went for $85,000.
Jesus Christ.
Zeke now had $170,000 in his pocket, but to justify in his own head what he would have to spend for the lot he wanted, he really needed this last lot to go through the roof. The auctioneer started the bidding at $110,000, and with paddles going up and down all over the room, the price rapidly climbed to $250,000. Again, like we're just saying, taxpayers' money paid for this painting that was a write-off for him, and then he just fucking
Flogs it
off for hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Zeke's total came to $490,000, but the estimate on the item he wanted to buy was $500,000 to $700,000. And just as that was about to come up, James Malcolm Isbister walked into the room. Time was Dr. Freeman.
I have learned to ignore such naysayers when quelling them was out of the question.
He found Zeke, shook his hand and asked, "Shall we step into the hallway to talk?" "I'm going to bid on something," Zeke explained. Dressed as he had been 2 days before in LA in a somber suit with a white shirt and dark tie, Isbister told him, "Unfortunately, I need to be elsewhere in less than quarter of an hour." Just actually, in less than quarter of hour. And was hoping to get this matter settled. "This is mine." Isbister didn't seem to care. "We continue to have antitrust concerns with your proposal. It stipulates you won't be cross-collateralizing any assets." This is how I'm playing this character. I don't care. I don't even care. "I have several commission bids, so we will begin at $620,000. Outwardly annoyed that there was too much interest in the Motherwell, Isbister must have thought Zeke's annoyance was with him. "Then that's that. It's a non-starter for us." "What do you mean that's that?" The auctioneer went on. $750, and now $770. Isbister said, "You are exposing us to a limitless downside." He started to move down the aisle. Isbister followed him. "We understand partnerships very well, as our main businesses are built upon them." $810,000 on the phone. "Any more at $810,000? Zeke raised his paddle. And brought it down in an almighty spank on the bare ass of the auctioneer. $820, the auctioneer spotted him. "Additionally," Isbister said, "there might also be some moral dilemmas we would not wish to confront. If you set up this studio, you will be making motion pictures and television shows that cater to the public taste. The public taste is not necessarily our taste," Isbister claimed. $890, the auctioneer looked toward the phones. "Our taste do not necessarily go hand in glove. In fact, in today's climate, it often does not. You make Mr. Farmer's business sound like a religion." Isbister paused for a moment before saying, "Those of us involved with the day-to-day running of his business are religious men. I don't see religion and show business as mutually exclusive entities. Selling now, ladies and gentlemen." "Come on." Zeke couldn't wait to hear the auctioneer's gavel bang. Isbister shook his head.
Gavel bang.
It's a Dutch music scene, isn't it? That's what they call Isbister. The gavel bang man. $890, someone shouted at the rear of the room. "Oh, fuck," Zeke said a little too loud. Still staring at the other bidder, Zeke said to Isbister, "If the idea is to wash your hands..." He stopped and immediately corrected himself. "To divest yourself of any moral conflicts." "Yes," Isbister agreed. "Divest is a better word. Frankly, I don't see a problem with the real estate, except," Isbister said, "that it gives us the status of a bank or mortgage lender, without any of the real benefits of the partnership." "With risk comes reward," Zeke reminded him. "Mr. Gimble," Isbister said, "I do not need a lecture on risks and rewards."
I swear, man, anytime Isbis does it, it's fucking
It's
brilliant.
class. Thank you for your time this morning, Isbister said. Selling now at $960,000. We will be in touch with you forthwith. The gavel came down. Isbister left. He just vanished.
Yeah, boom. Gone. The fuck away.
Sold at $960,000. Zeke brought his paddle down and turned to Isbister, but he was gone. And with him, Zeke realised, a possible $1.6 billion in funding. He had also spent nearly $500,000 more than he'd hoped to. Lot 69, the auctioneer announced, showing on the screens. Now, Zeke asked himself, what the hell just happened?
That is a good question.
The love shack is a little place where we can get together. Love shack, baby. Love shack, baby, love shack. Love shack, baby, love shack. Love shack, baby, love shack. Love shack, baby, love shack.
Sign says, stay away, fools, 'cause love rules at the Love Shack.
We'll sit way back in the middle of a field, just a funky old shack, and I gotta get back.
Has he offered to withdraw? Or to withdraw from the process?